And what we have to do is we have to start now utilizing the bureaucracy that's been created against themselves. So when you come into illegally in this country, you're not entitled to welfare, any subsidization, health care, none of that. So you ought to be parking our bottoms, in those bureaucracies of Child Protective Services, WIC, Women, Infants, and Children, all these programs to sort them out. They're not supposed to be able to get a job. So there's a lot here that happens.
I mean, where do we even start with that? It seems Trump supporters just can't help themselves saying the quiet parts out loud. As election season got closer, so did the covert and overt racist strategies by MAGA politicians and supporters like Paul Gosar here, who was seen giving his incredibly inhumane and racist strategy for how to deport more migrants by suggesting conservatives infiltrate organizations such as CPS and WIC. Because, of course, we know exactly the type of immigrant he's referencing here, and it is not all immigrants. It's just the black and brown ones, allegedly. Not only is this a disgusting abuse of political influence, but also sets a dangerous precedent for how migrants are treated inside the institutions where safety and respect should come before any political ideologies. It seems MAGA just cannot stop coming up with smaller iterations of January 6th, planning mini insurrections, if you will, to intimidate people of color, migrants, and really anyone who doesn't agree with their politics. It's as if they're wanting to play a version of swatting inside institutions to fully control the outcome they want. And it's not just migrants. Listen to Matt and Mercy Schlapp openly suggest MAGA supporters infiltrate ballot centers this election season.
See, my biggest concern in cities like Detroit and Philadelphia is what could happen there. I mean, Matt, you were in Nevada and you saw what happened in Carson City. And so, and I think really, Charlie, being able to be in the room where the votes are being counted, being present is important. Volunteer for the job, take the job,
a part-time job, $10 an hour, get in that room, take your cell phone with you.
Right. And I think that's going to be the key.
For a party that's constantly whining that it's Democrats who want more crime, Republicans sure do suggest criminal behavior quite a bit. According to his Wikipedia, Matt is the chairman of the American Conservative Union, leads the lobbying firm Cove Strategies, which has strong ties to the Trump administration, and as we can see in that video, a Fox News political contributor. Yikes. Matt also pushed for the big lie in 2020. No surprise there. And it seems he just can't let go of the false idea that it's the Democrats who are committing voter fraud, despite having zero evidence for that conspiracy theory. The myth of extensive voter fraud has been countlessly debunked over the last 6 years alone, with the Brennan Institute for Justice explaining that the research reveals that fraud is very rare, voter impersonation is virtually non-existent, and many instances of alleged fraud are, in fact, mistakes by voters or administrators. And as hilariously terrifying these statements are, it seems to be working in some ways, but against voters of color who are wrongfully targeted. Like in Florida, when police footage showed Black Tampa residents being arrested for voter fraud.
Apparently, I guess you have a warrant?
For what?
I'm not sure.
For voter stuff, man.
For voters.
It's what it is. I think the agents with FDLE talked to you last week about some voter fraud, voter stuff, when you weren't supposed to be voting, maybe.
Even the police there, who we know are no saints when it comes to discrimination, had a hard time understanding what was going on, and some even seemed apologetic for the confusion on all sides. If all of this seems like a ridiculous amount of reaching and complete lack of morals by Republicans, you're 100% right. And I need to remind you that analysts are predicting it's actually working. Last month, Vox reported that Democrats are losing blue states to Republicans, claiming that if Republicans have a good night on Tuesday and win a big majority in the House of Representatives, their gains won't necessarily come from the swing districts that have been perennial battlegrounds in recent elections. Instead, much of a red wave could come from the blue states, with Republicans poised to pick up multiple seats in states like Oregon and New York, while Democrats in states that are favorable political terrain might hold on. Republicans are heavily leaning on fear-mongering, race baiting, and conspiracies in order to gain votes. And it's clearly having an effect in all states, not just historically red ones. The midterm results could give us an insight as to just how far conservatives are willing to go, and that line has been blurry for years. You can find me on Instagram and TikTok. I'm Constanza Eliana for Rebel HQ.